Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another second stimulus check and second stimulus package unemployment benefits extension update as we begin this brand new week together. And as most of you guys probably know, we have a pretty big epic week coming up ahead because this is going to be the week with a lot of deadlines that are going to be coming up. We have actually a lot of news that's actually supposed to potentially be happening even today, which is a relatively big day. And then so in today's update, we're basically going to be talking about this whole rest of this week, what to basically expect today, the next couple of days as we approach the deadline, because as most of you guys may or may not know, is that on Friday, we are basically going to be hitting the deadline when the government shut down and also when they're going to potentially go on their holiday Christmas vacation again if they don't manage to pass a stimulus. Now on to the brighter news is that because we have relatively a time frame and a deadline, it does mean, however, is that we at least have some kind of time frame about when we can hopefully expect information, especially because the urgency in time is getting pretty urgent and sensitive right now. But we're going to be talking all about that today, covering what to know for this week, what to know for today, and everything that's going on in terms of where we stand with stimulus talks. So with that being said, we're going to get the video rolling right away. But before we begin, make sure you smash the like button if you can, because it always does help to support this channel. Consider subscribing for future topics on stimulus checks, unemployment, and also about general finance topics, especially because the need for money, I think most of us can feel, is probably more urgent than ever. I do have other videos if you guys are interested checking out, especially also about unemployment, how to get like extensions on your unemployment and all sorts of different programs that may be available right now. And feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about really anything at all, stimulus checks, unemployment, pandemic relief, especially true about what you guys think is going to come about with the stimulus talks at the end of this week, maybe by the end of this video. So with that being said, now let's get this video rolling. So the big thing to really know about this week is that this Friday, December 11th, is going to be the deadline where we're likely going to see a lot of details about what's finally going to happen in terms of the world of stimulus checks and stimulus packages. The reason why is because this Friday, as most of you guys know, is basically going to be the deadline. After this Friday, the government shutdown is going to potentially happen if they don't pass anything, and it's also when Congress is going to be going on vacation once again. Now there has been some talks they might be extending it, but I don't believe they're going to want to do it. But at this point in time, the big thing to know is that at least we have a hard date, so we can at least get some relative answers to what's been going on. The other big thing is that if they don't manage to pass something, because I believe everyone is trying to fight and preach for it now, which is the really good thing, it does mean that if they don't manage to approve and pass a stimulus by the end of this week, almost every single person, including the politicians themselves, are going to be impacted, because otherwise, we obviously don't get our stimulus package and checks for basically the rest of this year. And by stimulus package and checks, we mean basically any program whatsoever. Because as we know, some programs, the bipartisan does not include the checks. There have been some talks of trying to include the checks. But basically any kind of stimulus program, if they don't pass something, is going to be impacted, including on their side, because they also need funding to keep their government propped up. And also for a lot of businesses, whether this is a small business or even giant businesses, like a lot of airlines, airports, these are billion-dollar corporations that are going to potentially be impacted as well. Now, today and tomorrow is actually going to be a pretty important date as well, because these 2 days are also going to be when we're going to finally get details about the actual written language of the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus 2.0 stimulus bill that we've kind of been talking about. If you guys are brand new here, welcome, consider subscribing. I did make other videos talking a lot more about that. I'll put it in the description likely, and also at the end about both the skinny bill. It has a picture of Mitch McConnell on the thumbnail, and then also the bipartisan bill, which has a picture of Mitt Romney on the thumbnail. But basically, this is probably going to be the fast answer if you guys want to know what's in it. But the big idea is that I know there were a lot of people that were kind of asking questions, especially about the much more like written aspect about the stimulus package, because you can kind of look up the numbers, but then there's also a lot more written parts, such as like who actually qualifies for it, are they gonna be extending the unemployment, how long. A lot of the written stuff right now is still relatively vague, because the bipartisan stimulus at this current time is still kind of like a draft. We only have like the general gist of the ideas, but we don't have the actual written full language that has actually been physically documented. Well, that stimulus bill is likely going to be finally documented and put into language by actually sometimes even today or even tomorrow. So sometimes basically in the very, very near future, we will finally have much more information, including about all of the stuff like the qualifications, how long the actual extension lasts, who actually qualifies for the extension, is it going to be with just traditional unemployment or PUA, and basically all details surrounded about that, SSI, hazard pay, essential, basically all the much more written side of the stimulus bill. Now, the really great news to share is that as of the time that we're speaking, most politicians are actually still very, very much on board with stimulus checks and stimulus package, but specifically about the bipartisan. At this current time, the really, really great news to share is that a ton of people from both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, are now in support of it, including Nancy Pelosi, including Chuck Schumer. And I say those two names particularly because I know a lot of people were saying how they were the ones that were kind of holding up a lot of the stimulus packages and proposal. There's interestingly actually one person that has actually kind of also voiced over this weekend that they're now actually kind of not fully in support of it, but for much more interesting reasons, and that's actually going to be Bernie Sanders. Interestingly, Bernie Sanders is actually against the stimulus package, but specifically the bipartisan stimulus package. But interestingly, the reason he's against it is because he feels that inside of that package, we don't have stimulus checks, as most of you guys probably know. And I think the key idea is that he just feels that the stimulus package now is not sufficient enough. So he really wants to try to fight to include stimulus checks inside of it. Now, the great news or the not so good news, depending on how you look at it, is as we've kind of mentioned, is that the more things you want to put inside of the stimulus package, the obviously better it is in the sense that, we can hopefully see more money given to us. But actually on the other side though, one of the less good things is that it does mean that it also means the harder it will be to physically get a package. And one of the reasons that it's been such a struggle sometimes has actually been because there's been such a wide gap between the Republicans who have been trying to preach a very small, tiny, skinny bill, and then a lot of the Democrats who have been trying to preach for some kind of absolute absurd over-the-top $2-3 trillion bill. Now that Bernie Sanders and actually a couple politicians have actually kind of followed in with him, trying to voice for an even larger package, it does mean that it decreases the chance that we will see a stimulus by the end of this week. However, it does increase the likelihood that when we actually see it, it's going to be large. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinion about the current situation. But maybe one thing that's relatively nicer is that Bernie doesn't have a massive amount of power compared to Pelosi and Mitch McConnell. And I think probably of the people that actually do have a lot of power, the one that is still very hesitant to do the stimulus, but again, specifically the bipartisan stimulus, not stimulus in general. Everyone wants a stimulus, but specifically the bipartisan stimulus is probably going to be Mitch McConnell. But basically, if there's any takeaway from this, the big thing to know is that basically by the end of today or tomorrow, we're very, very likely going to see the actual physical wording of the bipartisan stimulus package / proposal. And then by, I believe, Tuesday, Wednesday into Thursday, we're finally going to start to have answers about what they currently think about the stimulus proposal. And then by Friday, that is when we are going to basically know whether or not they're going to officially sign it and finally approve and pass it, or if it's going to be something that's going to be taken into January. I do believe that most people are hopeful, most politicians are hopeful, a lot of individuals are very hopeful about that. But as always, I always say is to just keep the expectations as humble as you can, because we never know. I mean, this really has been just a year of a lot of uncertainty, but just hope for the best, because I think it does look promising, but just really be prepared for, honestly, I think just anything at this time. But with that being said, we will have lots of news, so definitely stay tuned for that. That's really what I wanted to cover in today's video. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell notification button for future updates if you guys are interested, especially with a lot of news coming up, and then also other finance topics. Feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about anything at all, what you guys think is going to happen, if you guys think we're going to finally see the stimulus approved and signed by the end of this week. And remember to smash the like button also, because it always does help to support this channel. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.